Hi, it's Alex Wiseman back again. This is part two of our screencast on how to develop your own research idea or proposal. This is part two of that screencast series. And we stopped at the end of the first screencast talking a little bit about the importance of developing and conducting a literature review. And we said that it was important to develop or conduct a literature review because you want to find out a couple of things. Has it already been researched? How might you need to revise your idea? What are some methodological techniques or problems that are specific to your idea? And then, just in general, to clarify your specific research questions and hypotheses. And we had just gone on to the next slide when we were rudely interrupted by the end of the recording, talking about the importance of being a critical consumer of the literature. Frequently, there will be no need to conduct an empirical study because the necessary research will already have been done. In other words, a lot of times only a literature review will be needed to answer your questions. And if that happens to you, then you want to be able to adjust your research topic. There are a couple things, however, that will help you evaluate each study you review. And so don't forget these important points. Number one, never place too much confidence in a single research study. That is, you should place much more confidence in a research finding that has been replicated. That means that it's been shown to be empirically validated, or that there's evidence that supports a particular study or point or problem or result in many different research studies. And because of the importance of viewing the full set of studies on an issue, and because of the benefit of replication when you do that, you can see why I'm recommending that you pay special attention to something called a meta-analysis when you find them in your literature searches. Now, a meta-analysis is a quantitative technique for summarizing the results of multiple studies on a specific topic. It's not foolproof, it's not the final word, but it does a great job of providing a reasonably accurate, or at least trustable, shall I say, source of confidence about a particular result or finding. What it does is it tells you if a certain amount of consistency has been shown in a particular variable's ability to predict something or to have an effect on a particular outcome. And it does so by calculating what the average effect size is in previous studies that have looked at whatever question you're thinking of, whatever the topic is. So if a meta-analysis comes across, or if you come across a meta-analysis in the literature that you're reviewing, you want to pay particular attention to that, because that will really help you think about what is important in the literature, what the literature has found, and think about the impact that that has on your own research idea. So where do you go to find information? Some of this you probably did in middle school, when you went to the library and the librarian gave you an overview of where to find things. Yeah, definitely books, right? Books are a good starting point. They give usually a really in-depth perspective with a lot more conceptual framework buildup than you would get from other sources. They often provide huge summaries of relevant research and theory. And you can really, they're really good at giving you an extensive account of whatever it is that the book is about, the topic that you're interested in. Journals are another excellent source. Journals tend to provide more recent information than books because they are published on a updated cycle, and they provide full-length empirical research articles for you to hopefully carefully examine. I think that most of what we do is we rely on journal articles, especially if they're peer-reviewed. That is going to be key. Right? That's very important. And remember that we're always looking for empirical research. With books, you don't necessarily always have empirical. But with journal articles, I would push you to look for empirical research predominantly. Computer databases are they're not something completely different than books and journals. They're more about finding relevant journal articles and then sometimes books as well. So we're still going to be relying largely on journals for a lot of what we're doing when it comes to major sources of information. And so you should be aware of that. But what computer databases do is they help you actually locate it. Probably the most important computer database in education, broadly speaking, is ERIC. And you can use ERIC to look for all sorts of educational research. I can't remember exactly. It's Educational Research Information Clearinghouse. I think that's what that stands for. Other important databases which you might have used in the past are JSTOR. That's a really big one. And then dissertation abstracts. I'm not going to spell that all the way out, but dissertation abstracts or dissertation, I think it's called ProQuest dissertations. Dissertations, unlike journal articles, and I've talked about theses and dissertations in, I think, the last screencast, can be a really good location just because they themselves have extensive literature reviews. And if you find a dissertation or a thesis through dissertation abstracts or ProQuest dissertations or whatever, take a close look at their reference list, especially if it's a pretty on-target topic for you and it's relatively recently published. That could be a wonderful source for you. I strongly recommend that you do not limit your search to just one single computer database. Honestly, I usually go to ERIC, to JSTOR, and to the dissertation abstracts. I probably do these two first most of the time. Another one that's come up recently, and more people are using it because it's actually linked through a lot of university systems, is Google Scholar. And that's just, I think you type in scholar.google.com and that comes up. Google Scholar is a great way to find peer-reviewed journal articles and to sort by date. It's a little wider net that you cast, so you can't limit the search quite as well as you would in ERIC or JSTOR based on keywords, but it is a really good source as well, so you consider that too. Also, I recommend that you don't only search for full text articles when you're looking in ERIC or JSTOR or Google Scholar, because that will really eliminate a lot of potential sources for you. And I know it's really convenient when you sit at your computer or your laptop to just be able to pull up a PDF or the full text of the article on your computer, but not all databases will have every article in full text availability. Even ERIC and JSTOR and Google Scholar don't always have that. So you might have to go find the full text version, but you will get at least an abstract or a summary of what the article is about. So think about those computer databases. Think about where you're looking and how you're looking, and it should help you get some ideas as you kick off your lit review. Now, before deciding whether to carry out your research project, you have to decide whether it really is feasible to conduct. And you should do this as early as possible so that you don't waste your time. This means that you have to design a research proposal or research study in your proposal that can be carried out given your available resources, which are having access to the information. That could be to people that you need to interview. That could be access to the literal data, like maybe you need test score information from a school district, or it could be access in terms of geography. Maybe you're interested in interviewing refugees in Liberia, but you have no way to get to Liberia to do that, and the people that you want to interview you can't just call up on the phone. That's an access issue. There are time issues. Most of you are on a time limit. For example, if you're doing this for a class, which if you're working with me, you probably have done that or you are doing that right now, a time is going to be an issue because at the end of the class you need to have a complete draft of your research proposal. Or you know that if you're doing this for a thesis or a dissertation, you know that you need to be finished by May if you're trying to graduate in the spring, right? And so you have to take into account the time that you have to do a particular study when you're planning the activities, when you're thinking about how do I get the data, how do I conduct the analysis, how do I do all this stuff, write it up, etc. Have time for feedback. All that goes into your time consideration. And so what a lot of people, including myself, end up doing is scaling back how much they are really going to try to accomplish based on the time that they have available to them. Another restriction or a limitation, unfortunately, is often financial. If there was a bottomless pit of money, we would have no restrictions with in terms of our financial ability to conduct research. But that is rarely the case. Even something as simple as printing multiple copies of a questionnaire that you want to distribute to potential participants can be extremely expensive when you get more than 100 participants involved. Right? So you need to take into consideration, will there be any external overt costs associated with the research that I want to conduct, and do I have the financial resources in order to make that happen? And then finally, we want to make sure that all of the ethical issues are being treated appropriately. So part of determining the feasibility is always going to be making sure that your study can be carried out ethically. And that means that no one gets hurt either physically or emotionally or mentally. And there's something at almost every institution of higher learning in the United States and a lot of research organizations as well called an institutional review board. And the institutional review board will usually help you make the ethical decisions, mostly by having you propose what you're going to do and then get back to them with a plan for how you're going to ensure the safety physically, emotionally, or mentally of the people that you're working with. Every one of you at some point will probably need to go through an institutional review board or an IRB process in order to have your research plan cleared in terms of what you're trying to do. Now that won't need to happen for, if you're in my class right now, that won't need to happen for your class. But if you actually wanted to conduct the research that you're proposing, you would have to go through the IRB in order to do that. So, after you get your topic, you need to move to determining your research problem. And the statement of the purpose of your study, your statement of the research questions, and if you're conducting a quantitative study, you'll also need to state your hypotheses. So the development of your research ideas involves a movement from the general to the specific. In other words, you'll go from, I have a very general topic up here, to I'm going to actually make statements about what I think is happening down here. Right? So we've talked about how to identify a topic so far. And now we're moving into how to work with the research problem or develop a research problem. And that will be what we investigate in the following screencast.